This one is Willy's Wonderland. It's about Willy and a Wonderland.
Okay. Yeah. So in the beginning of the movie, when it's sort of like an invisible force is killing the families, like the previous families, before Nicolas Cage actually gets there, because I don't think he actually has a name in the movie.
No, in the credits he's titled as the janitor, which is pretty awesome. Because you never find out his name.
No, he never talks whatsoever. I waited the whole movie for him to give like one cool line at the end. Nope, no cool line. Just doesn't talk the whole movie. And I'm like, how the hell do you hire Nicolas Cage to do your movie and then not let him say anything?
I thought that was one of the coolest things about the movie. Like, he doesn't even have to say anything to be awesome in the movie.
Yeah. But back to the beginning, like, before he gets there and they're going through, like, the family with the daughter that was there, who turns out to be the teenager later, they make it seem like it's some invisible force, like an Evil Dead knockoff or something.
Yeah, my first note, it says, humanity should have evolved beyond the shaky cam by now. Because that's what they were doing. They were doing the Evil Dead style, like,
well, what is it? We don't know. And then it even shows the dad being dragged down the hallway, but there's nothing behind him. Yeah. And I'm like, what? They're not, like, I guess they're kind of ghosts, but they have bodies. Like, not once after Nicolas Cage shows up does something happen without a body.
Yeah. Because, like, they're physical things attacking people. They're not, like, spirits, like ghosts or whatever, like in Paranormal Activity, where the demon doesn't have a physical form or it can be invisible or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, they're actual animatronic Five Nights at Freddy's, Chuck E. Cheese dancer robots.
Yeah. So weird. And then the teenagers in the movie were so
they're the
useless.
Worst.
They were useless. Like, you're introduced to the main character, like the main chick or whatever, and you're introduced to her trying to burn down this building, which I'm like, okay, it makes sense, whatever. And then the hillbilly cop lady shows up and handcuffs her to a radiator and gives her a bucket to pee in. I'm like, that's abuse. That's hardcore abuse. Like,
my third note says, anyone that tries to light fuel by putting the lighter right next to it will get burned alive.
Yeah.
It's something that makes me angry about movies, because in real life, gasoline, the liquid, is just a vessel to carry the gas. Yeah. The gas, like, okay, so I know someone in real life who told me the story that basically he had a coworker or something that had gotten burned because he had the gasoline trail and he had a rag and he lit the rag on fire and he was going to toss it onto the fuel, but the wind was blowing toward him when he lit it and it lit him on fire because it's the gas. That's why it's called gas. It's the gas that lights on fire. The liquid that we put in our cars or whatever is just to carry the gas, but the gas is in the air or whatever. Anyone who goes, like, if this is the fuel, if I go like this with a lighter, it's going to burn me alive. And I really wanted that to happen to the girl, but it didn't because movie.
I did this thing with Dylan's older brother, Danny, where he had a 5-gallon bucket full of gasoline outside. And I came outside smoking a cigarette. And he's like, what are you, stupid? Don't smoke a cigarette around gasoline. It'll catch on fire. So I flicked my cigarette into the bucket, and it went out. Yeah, it went out. Like, the cigarette went out. I was like, that's not how fires work. There has to be a spark. Like, there's no flame in my cigarette. You're fucking dumb.
My second note says, somehow Nicolas Cage looks more like Ghost Rider in the first 5 minutes of Willy's Wonderland than in 2 actual Ghost Rider films. He has the cool, like, dude look down. He's got the leather jacket and the awesome glasses, and he's got his hair just right and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, he looks, like, cool. Somehow he looks more like Ghost Rider in this movie than in the actual Ghost Rider movie.
I didn't think about that, but that's so true. Okay, so I have my third note. I didn't think that he looked more like Ghost Rider, but I do have my third note says that he's a weird combination of the Terminator and Ghost Rider.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Well, basically, I guess I should say, he looked more like what I imagined Ghost Rider would actually look like in that movie. Like, when you
Yeah,
think about Ghost Rider, you're like, oh, awesome biker superhero that can turn into a ghost flaming skull, brings judgment on the wicked and all this kind of stuff. Like, oh, yeah, he looks like a cool biker, which he looks more like in this movie than he does in the actual movie where he plays a real biker.
yeah.
Uh,
And
um,
so
but
my next note is he he already knows, right? Like he goes into this thing knowing that this place is alive, knowing that he has to protect himself and kill himself because he's not surprised by anything. But then they never explain, did he actually know, or is he just like so badass that it doesn't affect him at all?
I don't think he knows. I think that when it happens, he just deals with it, and then he just like goes, "Oh well, I guess that happened," and he just doesn't care. So like going in, I don't think he knows. He's probably like, "This is suspicious, but whatever. I got to get my car fixed." And then once the things start attacking, like he just defends himself, and then is like, "Oh, got to clean this up now." And then the next one tries to attack him, and again self defense, and he goes, "Oh, I guess the other one was alive too." And then it just keeps going for all of them. And then after the first or second one, he's like, "Oh, I guess they're all gonna come for me eventually. Whatever, got to clean."
Yeah. I didn't understand the breaks thing. Like I understood like when he got there, the guy's like, "Oh, make sure you take frequent breaks every half an hour or something."
I think
So
he
like
just was committed to taking breaks. Like he was like, "I have the whole night of like doing heavy cleaning. I deserve the occasional break."
yeah,
He was just
but
like, "That's a good idea. I will take breaks," and then he did.
yeah, and then there's like the scene where like she's about to get killed by the weird one with the long tongue.
Yeah,
And
that's my
his
favorite
watch
scene in the
goes
movie.
off, and he like hands her the mop and walks off.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like,
my
that's
favorite
so fucking
scene of the
awesome.
movie. Like he comes in and he's gonna like help her, and then his watch goes off, and he like gives her switchblade back, and then just walks away and takes his
Yeah,
break. And then he comes back and helps after his break is done.
yeah. Oh my
That's
god.
my favorite scene in the movie.
My
Right here,
next-
one night of cleaning does not equal a $1,000 tow plus tires plus labor. But of course, that doesn't really matter because they don't expect to pay him anyway.
Yeah, I know. But then they still fixed the car for some reason.
Yeah, basically,
That was kind of weird at the end.
that was a huge cop out. Basically, the excuse is that this dude is like keeping the cars for himself. But it's not like he would have fixed it overnight to give to him. He would have just gone to it when he got to it.
Yeah, no, there's no way. Like, it would have made more sense if like he came out and then he took one of the guy's cars.
Yeah. And then got his car back.
Yeah.
Maybe
My next
blatant.
note just says "dumb fuck teenagers."
Yeah, that's a couple after this one. Blatant Five Nights at Freddy's ripoff, which I know you haven't played it. I haven't either. But if you ever, everyone's like seen videos of it. Have you ever watched videos of Five Nights at Freddy? The animatronics, basically the whole situation is basically a ripoff of that game. Basically, the premise is that you're this dude who gets hired part-time as like a security guard at this like basically a Chuck E. Cheese place, and the animatronic robots come to life at night and try to kill you by fitting you inside their suit. They like cram you inside the mechanical suits, and it like crushes you to death because you can't fit in with all the machinery. And so basically, the game is just you looking at security monitors and like trying to survive the night before your battery runs out from the doors and the cameras or whatever. But if you look up Five Nights at Freddy's, the creatures look exactly like the creatures in the movie. So you can pretty much tell that it was, I don't know if it was like, I don't want to say it was ripped off, but you can clearly tell it was just inspired. Like that's where they got the idea from.
Yeah, they looked almost exactly the same except for the fact that they're different animals.
Yeah.
Speaking of the animatronics, though, like they're all these like weirdly like cuddly / creepy creatures and stuff, and then you've got Siren Sarah,
Who's just a human.
But she will haunt my nightmares for the rest of my life. She was the creepiest thing out of all of them. Like when she's walking around and shit, and And when she like pops up on the screen and her face is like all fucking deformed, I'm like, that's super fucking scary. Like even if these things weren't actually alive and you're just like at a Chuck E. Cheese and you see that in the corner, you're like, that thing's gonna kill me.
Yeah, the design for her was really good.
Yeah.
At your LOL at random bimbo undoing police cuffs with a hair clip. Because no way that happens in real life.
Yeah, no way. No way she's smart enough to be able to do that and then dumb enough to do everything else that she does in the movie.
Yeah.
One of my notes literally says retarded black guy and stupid whore aren't allowed to die because sex.
Yeah, I have a note about that on the next page. The next one says unlikable teens equals skip. Like whenever they were on the screen, I just like skipped through it because nothing they say is important at all in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Flipping off your empty trailer doesn't make you hardcore. I really laughed at that scene where as they're leaving, the main lady, like she turns around, she flips off her empty trailer as she's leaving. You remember that?
Yeah, like there's nobody home. Why don't you go find your like abusive hillbilly kidnapper cop lady and flip her off? At least then like somebody would have seen it.
This isn't on my notes, but I find it hard to believe that all the years she's lived in this town has wanted to kill or destroy Willy's Wonderland. She's never succeeded.
Okay, so yeah, I agree with that. But to take it a bit further, I'm sitting here thinking like you're what, like 16, 17 years old now, and you've lived in this town against your will. Like your parents are dead and you were basically kidnapped by a cop lady who sent your parents to die. How long have you known that? And you're still there? Wouldn't you have just left the town at this point?
Yeah. That is a good point of why she even like stays there.
Yeah, like even if she has like some moral sense of justice, like, oh, I have to burn this town so it never happens to anybody else's parents like it did mine. I'm like, well, a 10-year-old who knows that her parents were killed by animatronic ghosts probably would have left a long fucking time ago, or even probably killed themselves, to be honest.
You're not my real mom. See, I have during the cleaning scene, Nicolas Cage is thinking to himself, how did I go from national treasure to maidservant? Because there are like all these scenes of him just cleaning, like without talking and stuff.
Yeah.
And he has to be thinking, like, has my clout in the acting world gone down that much? The next one says, who mops before sweeping? That one was a big deal for me. Because all the times that he's cleaning, it shows him mopping up while the floors are clearly still, like, really dirty.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'm pretty sure this is a note I have later on. But, like, there's so many scenes where you're like, oh, he has to re-clean now. Because he, like, fought a creature and then had to clean up. But he cleaned up, then the creature attacked him, and then after he killed it, he has to clean up again. How many rooms did he have to re-clean during the night? Like, it's already enough of a stretch to think that he cleaned up the whole restaurant in one night. But he has to re-clean everything because he's getting oil all over the place.
Yeah. I thought that during the bathroom scene. Like, he spends all this time and the bathroom is spotless. Then he gets attacked. He breaks a door. He breaks a mirror. There's oil and parts and shit everywhere. There's water spraying all over the place. And I'm like, ha, now you have to clean that room again. And then I started thinking to myself, he basically has to clean every room twice. There's no way he's going to get that done in one night.
Also, he keeps changing shirts every time. And I was like, why wouldn't you just keep the dirty shirt on? You're just going to get dirty again.
Every time he killed one, he changed his shirt so that it was clean again. And I didn't understand that at all. I was like, okay, that doesn't really make any sense, but it's such a small thing that I won't take points off for it.
Yeah.
So
I fear all the animatronics just stand there and watch as their ostrich friend gets brutalized with a stick.
Oh, yeah. I didn't understand why they didn't all attack at once. Like, if they all attacked at once, they probably could have taken him. Yeah. But instead, they specifically take turns for no good reason.
In that first one, I don't remember if the ostrich was the first one or not, but he gets attacked by the ostrich in the main room where all the other animatronics are. and as he's beating it to death with a stick, all the other animatronics are just like standing there, not helping their friend. And it's like, you can help at this point. Maybe you wanted to let him do it on his own, but now that he's about to die, wouldn't you step in?
Yeah, it's like, oh, we don't want him to know we're alive. Like, one of you already tried to kill him, so he knows that you're alive now.
If there are too many, it says, turn on the lights, dude. Like, there are so many scenes where they pull the horror movie crap of, like, it's dark, and it's like, why? You could just flip the light switch.
It's so dumb.
Too many cuts. What is this, Underworld? Like, all the fight scenes, like, should have been really good, but were crappy because they just chopped them up into 1,000 cuts. And it's like, is it really that hard to fight an ostrich in a few cuts? Like, why does every little, like, punch or action have to be its own cut? You know?
Yeah.
Like, even Star Wars, even the new Star Wars movies have good action scenes because they use a few long cuts instead of chopping every scene up. Like, even though the movies are crap, if you watch the action scenes, like the lightsaber fights, if you watch the editing and the choreography, it's all very well done in Star Wars. But then you watch a movie like this, and it's like, oh, this should have been really easy, but you made it really stupid looking.
Yeah.
That was one of my biggest complaints about the action scenes. I'm like, you had these cool action scenes, and you made it look like crap because now you made it into a bunch of cuts in the editing room, and I can't understand what's going on. I can't follow the action because it's just like a blur of cuts.
My biggest complaint about the movie is the ending when the teenage girl gets into his car. And
I'll get to that.
Off, and I'm like, you just kidnapped this girl.
Yeah. I say teenagers are the only age group retarded enough to think that jump scares are legitimate forms of horror. Like, I don't understand why jump scares are still a thing. Like, jump scares are not horror. Like, surprising someone is not horror. Like, flashing a monster on the screen is, like, the cheapest way to get someone to be like, ooh!
Yeah.
And they do that several times in this movie. And I'm like, you're better than this, Willy's Wonderland. You don't have to be like this.
I assume that they did that just to, like, put it in there. Because, like, if you take all of those all of those scenes out of the movie, it's a comedy. Yeah. And I'm going into it thinking, like, this movie's going to be hilarious. And I did think it was hilarious, to be honest with you.
I did, too.
There are a lot of, a lot of things that we're talking about are shit that I would have changed. But all around, I think the movie was a good movie.
The best horror movies are usually funny. It says... This next one says, why do people always touch unknown liquids in horror? Like, there's a scene where there's, like, some oil or something, and he, like, touches it with his hands. And I'm like, who would do that in real life? No one touches unknown substances. Like, you don't know what that is.
Yeah.
They do that all the time.
Yeah, at least he didn't put it in his mouth. Yeah. Do that in a lot of movies. You're like, oh, what's this? That's blood. I'm like, okay, now you have AIDS.
That leads into my next note, which is unnecessary sex scene is boring and unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of this? You're literally in a place where you know is haunted by killer robots. That is not the place to do it at.
Yeah, like, you're specifically there to burn it down and kill these robots. And when your girlfriend says, has that robot been here the whole time? And you're like, yeah, it was there. Like, what's it matter if it was there the whole time? It's one of them. Like, it's gonna kill you.
It wasn't even sexy either. Like, they were fully clothed the whole time. And I'm like, this is the most PG sex scene in an R-rated movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, like, this was
another note later on that says
doesn't know how teenagers have sex.
Yeah, I have a note later on. I think there's a line in the movie where he's like, I want to see you in your birthday suit. And I have a note that says birthday suits don't include bras and jean shorts.
Yeah. Oh, and it's so dumb.
Yeah.
It's like the corniest joke in the entire movie. I hated that.
Yeah. I was like, you should be above cliches. Movie that ripped off a $5 Steam game.
Yeah. I don't understand, like, these ghosts are ghosts because they were killing people and shit.
Yeah.
So why did the alligator thing sit there and watch them have sex?
Because they're Satanists and they're gross like that.
Still, but like never in the backstory that was completely unnecessary for the movie, where they like, and that's another thing.
That's another note. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, but like nowhere in this backstory did they say like, oh, they were perverts and they like watching underage children have sex or something. But then randomly, this alligator has the perfect opportunity to kill them, waits 10 minutes for them to get it off before he chopped one of their heads off. And I'm like, why did you wait? Why didn't you just do it as soon as they got in there? You tried to kill the other girl as soon as she tried to get into the fence. So why would you sit there and watch them do this? It's weird.
My next note is about that scene where the sheriff has him cuffed for no reason. Where she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Willie. This guy don't represent us. Go ahead, cuff him, Sergeant," or whatever. You remember that scene?
Yeah. Like, nobody has been able to kill any of these things the entire, like, history of this building. Some random guy comes in, you see that he's killed all but, like, 2 of them, and your first instinct is to be like, oh, no, we have to stop him from killing the rest of them.
Yeah, pretty much. Basically, so first of all, the sheriff tells her sidekick to cuff him, but then you see that his hands are restrained with ropes. So he didn't actually cuff him. He tied him off with ropes, and then the ropes magically break for no reason, like partway through the fight scene.
Oh my god!
And I was like, number one, you didn't even do what she told you to do. She told you to cuff him. You tied him up, and number two, they just magically came off when it was convenient for the main character.
Yeah. And then okay, so I understand that they bring up, like, several times in the movie, like, oh, if we don't sacrifice people, they'll leave the building and kill the people in town. But, like, so conveniently does the alligator follow the cop, and as soon as he has, like, a realization that's like, oh my god, you're right, I shouldn't have done that. I'll go back, I'll save this town, I'll do all this. And then the alligator kills him, and then the girl runs away out of the cop car and makes it back. Like, how does she make it back? Like, if the alligator is fast enough to follow a vehicle, you think it can't chase her through the woods?
One of my next notes says, "Find the car keys, moron." Like, why didn't she go get the keys and drive back? Like, why did she just run away?
It's so dumb. Oh my god, this is the kind of movie that would have given, like, somebody would have asked her and be like, why didn't you drive back? And she's like, I don't have my license. But talking the unneeded, like, explanation of the history, it made me so mad that these teenagers go into the room with Nicolas Cage and start explaining this thing. This huge, like, flashback happens with an overtone monologue, and I'm like, this is so fucking dumb. And then it jumps back and he's not paying attention to them. And I'm like, he hasn't spoken to you once. What makes you think he wanted to hear any of this? This is so unnecessary.
Let's see, I think it's one of my later notes. I basically said, all non-introductory scenes with other people should have been cut. So, like, the scene with the guy, basically the scene where he's towed in, and the guy's like, oh, you know, this will cost you, but we don't take checks, or if we don't have ATMs and all this kind of stuff. And then the scene where the guy explains, basically when he gets picked up by the tow truck driver, and to the point where the guy's like, oh, you're what's the stupid line? When he's like, oh, you're Willy's employee now, and then he goes away. Those scenes, everything with another person that wasn't Nicolas Cage, except for those scenes, should have been cut. It should have been just those, just the setup to get him into Willy's Wonderland. And then the rest of the movie is just him alone, not saying crap, being randomly attacked by animatronics. And then the next day, like, he goes and the people are like, oh, holy crap, you survived? I mean, yeah, here's your keys, bye. And then he drives off, and that was the end of the movie. All non-intro scenes with other people should have been cut. Every scene with the teenagers was pointless. The backstory was pointless. We didn't need to know why the animatronics were alive, whether they were haunted or possessed by demonic ritual spirits or whatever. It was all pointless. That ruined the movie. The only good stuff was Nicolas Cage in the animatronics. Like, Nicolas Cage in the place with the monsters. all the other scenes were stupid exposition that we didn't need.
Yeah.
Basically.
Like they didn't bother explaining any of that stuff until he had already killed like 3 of them. Yeah. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, I've already accepted that they're alive. You don't have to tell me why they're alive. Yeah. And the most pointless scene that I think is when after the guy picks him up and he's already figured out, like, oh, you don't talk very much. That's okay. I'll talk for the both of us. And then they're just driving around and they're talking and Nicolas Cage isn't saying anything. And then they pull up on the hillbilly cop lady just to introduce them to each other. Like, I don't think he even recognized her when she finally got to Willy's Wonderland. No. So, like, that whole scene was useless.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
My next note says, when he has that fight where his hands are tied up, it says the music stops for no reason after killing the frog lady, which is the lady with the big tongue, like the long tongue.
Yeah.
So like there's the whole thing where like heads, knees, shoulders, toes, or whatever is playing while he's fighting. But then it just stops for no reason. Like he didn't turn it off. It just stopped on its own.
Yeah. Like, was the music coming out of the frog lady?
Yeah, I don't know. What was the next one? Oh yeah. This one is kind of weird. Unlikely pinball master. Like he really got into that pinball machine. Pinball's a hard game. Yeah. Like we're supposed to believe in the course of like 5-minute breaks, like he became a pinball master and got a high score or whatever.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I'm like, it shows like during his final break that he beats the high score, he sets the new high score. I'm like, is there a way to pause a pinball machine? Like, is there a way to like close it off and be like, okay, I'll come back in 30 minutes? Because that's what it seemed like. I'm like, there's no way that you got that high of a score in the 15 minutes that you were playing that round.
Yeah. Also, by the end of the movie, like as the breaks progressed, he like kept trying to like make love to the pinball machine for some reason, and I thought that was kind of weird. Like,
yeah.
Like he got like really erotically into playing the pinball machine. I thought that was a weird choice.
Yeah, definitely. Like, out of everything he could have been doing, why the pinball machine? Like, why not an arcade machine?
Why not Siren Sarah, or whatever her name was?
Yeah. Yeah.
This next one, basically, it's about the fact that when the sheriff is like, oh, here he is, Willy, kill him. Willy kills her, like, with one slice. But when he attacks Nicolas Cage, all he can do is like swipe at him and deal a bunch of like minor cuts. Like he straight up slices the sheriff in half. But then when he's fighting Nicolas Cage, he can only manage like some like cuts when he's just like pawing at him. And it's like either you can cut people in half or you can't. I don't care which one it is, but you need to pick one or the other.
I have a theory about that because I thought about that too. I thought about like all of the facts that like don't make any sense. I think Willy wanted to die. I think Willy's the only one who wanted to die. That's why he never helped any of his friends. He finally decided this needs to be over. I need to like rest in peace and all this shit. So every time his friends get attacked, he doesn't help. He doesn't do anything. And when it finally comes to his turn to fight, he wants to die. But if he doesn't attack, then Nicolas Cage won't kill him. So he has
rid
to
of
like
the lady that's stopping Nicolas Cage, and then he puts up a fight so that the guy will finally put him out of his misery.
Yeah, like Willy specifically kills anyone who is trying to make it easy for him to kill Nicolas Cage, and then frees Nicolas Cage and fights him with pulled punches specifically so that he and the rest of them can die.
It actually makes a lot of sense. Like, oh, I'm stuck as an animatronic weasel. This isn't it. I should have really thought this through.
Yeah. I should have put more thought into this before I killed myself.
Yeah. My next note says, how many times did Nicolas Cage have to re-clean, which you already talked about?
Yeah.
Like he would clean and then get into a fight that would dirty up the floors, and then he'd have to re-clean again. But now my next note is about the ending. It says, is Nicolas Cage seriously cool with some underage tard hitching a ride without permission and illegally giving her alcohol as well? Like he's pretty possessive about his booze, like his beer. Like he keeps it. Like that's like the one thing he takes from his car before he gives it to the guy to.
It's not alcohol. No.
Isn't it beer?
No, it's an energy drink. It's like
Oh,
I don't remember what it's called. It's got like a lightning bolt on the side of it.
No, I thought it was.
Got out of it. I thought it was an energy drink.
Oh, I thought it was beer. Maybe I'm wrong. Either way, that's his precious drink, and he gave it to some retarded 17-year-old that got into his car without permission. Is he seriously cool with like letting her come along? It's not like he has any like, oh yeah, come on, you're a good kid, I'll help take care of you. Like he doesn't say anything. There's no like feelings between them. Basically, she sees her right out of town and just like forces her way into his car.
Yeah. Okay, so I just looked it up, and it's an energy drink called Punch.
Okay.
And I guess they're making fun of Bang Energy when they do it.
I've never even heard of Bang Energy.
I have. I've had like 2 or 3 of them, and they taste like absolute garbage. But everyone's obsessed with them for some reason.
Yeah. The next one says, Nicolas Cage never speaking is the best thing about the movie. And then, all the non-intro scenes should have been cut. And the last note basically says that the police could have easily killed all the robots if they really wanted to. Which is a big plot of this movie. They're like, oh, we had to make a treaty with Willy because we can't defeat them. And it's like, no, you have shotguns and a SWAT team and all this kind of stuff. You could have killed the robots.
Yeah, some random dude shows up and kills them with mops, and I'm like, you couldn't have blown off their heads with a shotgun?
Pretty much, yeah.
Any sense.
Yeah, those
overall, overall for my number scales, since you said you didn't have one, as a horror movie, I gave it a 3 out of 10. Not scary, but they had jump scenes. But as a comedy, I gave it a 7 out of 10. Was hilarious and violent, and still better than Rubber.
I think it's easily like a 5, maybe a 6. But if it cut out all the scenes that didn't need to be in it, it would have been a 7 or an 8 for me.
Yeah.
I definitely liked it. Except all the scenes with other people, I was like, skip.
Yeah.
Don't care about you.
The teenage scenes, but the fights and stuff were hilarious. I thought the movie was funny. Really glad that I went into it thinking that it was a comedy instead of thinking it was supposed to be a horror movie. Because if I went into it thinking it was a horror movie, it would have been garbage. I probably wouldn't even have finished it.
I assumed it was a horror movie, but I also assume that horror movies are only going to be of value to me if there's funny stuff in it. Like the horror is supposed to be funny if you think horror is funny.
Yeah. All right, then we're in agreement.
Yeah, because like I don't watch Nightmare on Elm Street and go, oh, it's so scary. I go, he just like killed that stupid kid. Awesome.
All right. High five.